right, welcome back to Reframe Podcast. We're here with John Corelli. My first question, I've known you for a while.
Yes, sir.
And you know when you've known someone like a long time and you don't know their name and you can't ask because it's been too long?
Mm-hmm.
I know your name, but I don't know if you prefer John, Jonathan, or Johnny.
Ooh.
And I've called you all of those things.
Well, Jonathan is not my name.
Okay, not a Jonathan.
So that is definitely off the table.
That's one gone.
I think people who knew me when I was little, like a kid, call me Johnny. People that I've kind of met since then, maybe like high school, call me John. I genuinely don't care.
Don't care. Okay.
Yeah.
Similar with me. My sister and my mom are the only people who call me Joshua.
Okay.
But I don't care.
Yeah.
You can call me whatever.
Yeah, it's probably like 80% John, 20% Johnny, but I really don't care.
Okay. Well, I will 80% of the time call you John then, and
Cool.
20% call you Johnny.
Steven, can we start like a counter on that?
Yeah, see if
And
you
a
can just
stat
click
for the
them
end.
off underneath.
Yeah.
Man, we're here at Perry Hall Family Worship Center, the church that your dad founded 18 years ago,
Yeah.
which seems kind of crazy. I'm probably way more crazy to you than me. And you've been here the entire time. So I
Yes.
just want to go back to little Johnny.
Oh, yeah.
like before
11.
we started here. Okay. When did you become a believer? How did that play out in your life? What were the things that kind of led you that direction? Was it just your dad and the family and the life, or give us kind of that story?
Yeah, it was a environment I grew up in. We went to my Uncle Rick's church at the time. We had I don't know if he was like a pastor or just someone who was sort of highly involved. He and I were really close, and he actually led me to the Lord. So I would have probably been maybe like 7 or 8, somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, Mike Seymour. So he passed away a few years ago. But yeah, someone I was really close to, and got to share that moment with, and got baptized at my Uncle Rick's church, and even sort of looking forward to today. It's my testimony has always been something that maybe I've struggled with a little bit because I grew up in the church and I don't have like a crazy, I was a murderer before or anything like that. But I do think a cool piece is that, as I've gotten older in the life, like, this relationship is so real that I haven't had the desire to try something else or see if the other side is better, because I know it's not, you know?
Yeah.
So
I have similar, like I don't have any crazy testimony, and I've been on tours with other bands who have these crazy testimonies, and I struggle with that too. I'm like, well, I shouldn't even talk. But
yeah.
That's just not how it works. I'm glad you said like this relationship is so real. I've been working here for a couple months now, and I'm going to brag on your dad because he's not in here, and who knows if he'll ever listen to this.
He won't like that though.
Yeah. But I came in yesterday, and he was something as simple as he was walking around the parking lot praying. Mm-hmm. First one here. It just impacted me because I've worked at other churches, and it's sad to say this, but like it was always presented as, we want you to pray and have devotion time and spend time with the Lord, but all of that off the clock.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, come here, you fill out your paperwork, you plan your lessons, you do whatever that is, and then you talk to Jesus afterwards, which even is crazy because a lot of people have families and their time's already limited. Yeah. So as a church, then you're also saying, I also don't totally care about like your life as a husband or a father, whatever it is. Like, take care of all these things. And it just impacted me so heavily, and I realized that pretty much any time I come here, he's already somewhere praying. That's how he starts pretty much every day. Yeah. And so I guess what I came away with is like, we say like, I believe in prayer. He believes in prayer. Like he's breaking out parts of his days every day to make sure it's like focused and intentional. Mm-hmm. And so you've been around that your whole life, right? Yeah. And tell me about I want to talk about the family dynamic, because when I tell people about this church, I'm still the new guy. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, sort of most of the leaders or like people who've been here a while, most of them are family. Mm-hmm. And everyone's like, that shouldn't work. And I'm like, I know, but it super does. Yeah. Like, this is a unique family that's following the Lord and super respectful and cares about each other. Has it always been that way? Is it just the way you came up?
Yeah, our family has really always been tight-knit family, mom's side and dad's side. My dad talks a lot about when he was a roofer. Yeah. So that's a company my grandfather started, and, he worked there with his brothers, and a lot of the, us, which would be like the cousins, we all worked there. And, for a while, Rosedale was very heavily family. It still is, but it's, as it's grown, there's more non-family there. And my mom had a health food store with her sister. So it's just kind of, then my sister-in-laws worked there. So like we've always really just been surrounded with family all the time. And, when we started the church, the family was the core, and yeah, it's just kind of stayed that way. Of course, now as we've grown, we've got people not in the family involved, but
For sure.
yeah, it's pretty much kind of the family was the core, and praise the Lord, the core is still there. So
Yeah, I love that, and that's just it. I believe that's the way family should work, and I just don't think it's the norm anymore. So it's shocking when I tell someone that. I'm like, they're like, they serve together every Sunday. I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's awesome, man. So you were here from the beginning, 11 years old. Mm-hmm. What, looking back, like, does it seem insane, or does it happen so gradually you didn't notice that you went from a garage to a basement to this building? I think Pastor Dom says you guys came here, you started here with about 50 strong.
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly, but that sounds kind of about right. Yeah, for me, I think like the transition from garage to basement was, I don't want to say nothing, but
well, yeah,
it happened so quick because we started in July, and then we were really only, I think, outside, and so we were the garage and then like the area right outside the garage for a few months, because then it got cold, so then we had to go outside. So then we were in the basement for, I think it was 9 years, and to come straight from the basement to here. So my parents had a rancher house, so kind of a long basement. We could fit a lot of chairs in, but I think each individual section here is more chairs than we could totally fit in the basement. So to come right from that to here was huge. Yeah. And, big leap of faith, and, little by little, just continuing to fill out the seats, I guess. I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep. So when I was hired here, because my band's played shows here, I've known you off and on over the years. I always assumed that you worked full time here because you're so involved, and you don't work here at all. No. So talk a little bit about, I don't know if it's necessarily a title, but what are your responsibilities here on a regular? I know there's more than what we talk about weekly, but what's your general responsibility here?
I don't know. I think it's hard to define. Yeah. My dad and I work really close on a lot of things. Outside of that, I would, sort of when I talk about it, I mostly talk about the production end of things. Right. So sound, lights, video in terms of projection, not like the video announcement video that Steven's doing. And, sort of service orchestration or something like that. Yeah. I know you've kind of been doing some of that lately, but yeah, I kind of, I guess I would, more service related stuff, tech related stuff, production, I guess. And then concerts are me too. So,
which I think we were talking in staff meeting this morning about different ways God speaks to us. And I think you're one of those ways with your dad, which is not really, it's not a title, it's not a position. It's just you guys have that real, genuine relationship that I think when you speak and it makes sense to him, like we kind of know God's doing something. Yeah. Which I think that's how a lot of stuff has happened here, right? Like the concerts kind of came out of those conversations, if I'm correct. Like it was.
Yeah. The concerts were, I don't want to say accidental, but kind of. So I had known you guys as a fan. You guys played a show with a friend of mine's youth group a few years before, and I knew you guys were on the radio, and I knew all that. And you guys had worked with Tony, my cousin, to
shout out to the Tone Doctor,
Deep End Studio. So he did your first couple albums, I believe. Yeah. And so we thought we wanted to do like a night of worship here where our church's worship team would open, and then you guys would be like the headliner of the show, and we didn't know what we were doing or anything. And so we booked the show. We pretty much got everything locked in, and then really right before it was time to send kind of the final signed, offer in, your booking agent reached back out and said, hey, they just joined the Fireflight tour. You can still bring them sort of on a one-off if you want, but I think it was like $1,000 more or something to bring the tour. Would you rather do that instead? And then that was kind of a no-brainer. So Fireflight was a band I had followed for a while. So it was like, yeah, awesome, sweet. Yeah. And then, we were talking about it earlier today, even like Danny, the road manager, if he's ever listening to this.
Oh, man, he's the best.
Thank you. I think, we probably wouldn't have kept doing shows if it wasn't for him, because we didn't know what we were doing, and he sort of, held our hand along the way and helped us out. And we had a great show. It was a good time. And
Yeah.
it probably took us about a year before we did our next show. But it was something where it was just, we all really enjoyed it. We all liked it. And, realized that could become a very good outreach of the church, sort of not so much ministry of the church, but avenue to reach people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so people know what we're talking about, because sometimes I assume only our church is listening to this, but Perry Hall Family Worship Center is where I work in the church that John's been a part of from the beginning. And so how many years ago did you start? What was that first concert? Was 2012?
2012, yeah.
2012?
I think it was April 19th.
Okay. So the church has been systematically bringing in artists, Christian artists, I don't know, 2-3 times a year, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the year?
Yeah, so it started out with 1, and then I think the second year we did 2, and we scaled up as much as 6 in 1 year, and that was just a little too much for us to do.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so we're scaling back down. The goal really is about 1 per quarter.
Okay.
So 3 to 4 a year. That's kind of our new goal.
Yeah.
It seems to fit kind of our pace of things here.
Gotcha. Yeah, and we I don't think people, I'm talking about artists that you would know. I just want to be clear. You bring a Phillips Craig Dean or Francesca Battistelli. So if you know anything about the promoting, production, booking side of things, it's a significant investment, financially and time-wise. And I like the purpose behind it, because it's not just to grow numbers and to make your church look bigger.
Yeah.
It is literally to reach people with Jesus that you just wouldn't. So, and that's why you're bringing in some of the edgier bands. I think we were one of the heavier bands that came in, and Fireflight and some bands like that.
Yeah, 7 Time Down.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's awesome. I love that you guys do that. I do want to talk about the promoter stuff, but yeah. Well, let's start with the production. So here at the church, where did the passion come from? Because I've been to on tour a lot. I've met a lot of church sound guys, and there's a stigma that goes with that. I think you're aware.
Yeah.
You're not that.
You're one of the guys. I probably am that a little bit.
No. You're a guy who's passionate to the point of you push yourself to learn all the things you need to learn instead of just I can push faders. You want things to be good.
Yeah.
You care very much about it, from the gear that you're using into how you use it. So where did that come from? How long has it been there?
Ooh, I don't know. So, I mean, I guess if we kind of rolled back to when the church started, I was the projector in the literal term of projector, where it was the lamp with the clear glass on top that you
overhead
printed lyrics
projectors
on a clear piece of paper, and you had mirrors to reflect it. So it started out as that, and I don't know, I'm competitive with myself.
Yeah.
So I want anything I do, I want to do it as best I possibly can. So I think a lot of it started with that. It started with, I want to be able to move this mirror perfectly to keep up with the lyrics. And then it shifted into, when I move the mirror, the whole light shifts up or down, and that's kind of distracting. So I was like, how can I do this to be less distracting? So then I'm figuring out how can I slide the paper to keep up with it. Yeah. So I'm as little distracting as possible. Now that can be distracting a little bit too, because if the paper's jumping around. So that was something I kind of just played with and messed with. And then, in sort of knowing that both options are not the best, we had a little Sony Vaio laptop that we had, and we used PowerPoint. We started putting lyrics on that, and then we were using computerized projector, and then it just came with hey, can I keep up with the lyrics? So it started out of that, and then we grew into Easy Worship, and then we grew out of that into Pro Presenter. So a lot of my started there, and that would have all been when we were still in the basement. And then when we moved here, it's when I really got, I guess, more involved in the audio and the lighting side of thing. At home, when we were in the basement, the lighting was literally the switch to the basement lights. There was no lighting. So we got here, and then, going through the process of picking an integrator, and going through all of that, I really just got into it. It was something that was new and exciting and something I wanted to learn. And then, so I didn't mix the first Sunday. I think the integrator did. That was kind of part of the deal. They would get everything installed, make sure everything would work. And then I had never really ran sound prior to that. I'd done it a couple times in my parents' basement, if whoever was supposed to run sound that week couldn't, I would just kind of fill in. But excuse me.
I know you're good. I think the key to like backing up to when you started, like that's exactly what I thought it would be. Like when you're trying to figure out the best way to run an overhead projector, I think it's wired in your DNA. Like I think it's just who you are.
Yeah, and then so then I started running sound, and I'm pretty confident it was the first week I ever ran sound. The typical someone comes back and says a comment, and you know what? They were 100% right. I didn't know what I was doing. You couldn't hear the vocals. Like I remember the comment to this day, word for word. I won't say who it was. Okay. They still go to this church.
It was your mom.
No, it was not my mom.
I'm just
kidding. So then like that sort of like, I don't want to say criticism, but it was sort of a constructive criticism of, hey, like, we're trying to worship. We can't understand what's going on. Just kind of led me to like want to be better and want to learn more. And then we've always recorded the whole service. That was almost something we did since day one. I think we probably started that in the basement, so it would have been year one. But so then I would take, I would take the CD home and I would listen to it, and I would just be like, "This is awful. This is terrible. I want to be better." So that just really kind of steered me into just wanting to be better at that and growing that skill set. And, I am now 9 years later, still trying to learn, still trying to grow that, because I don't think I'll ever, reach where you want to be. You always want to be learning, so you never want to stop. So
it's so important though. Like, and this is what this podcast was born out of, and who knows what it'll be, but it's the idea that ministry is not just the pastor and the youth pastor. Mm-hmm. It's not even just within the church, but within the church, there are these things that people may not feel like are ministry. Even people who are doing it, I'll guarantee you there are production guys in other churches who are like, no, I'm just doing a task.
Right.
Like, I'm trying to make sure it sounds good. But like the key to what you said earlier, you're removing distractions from the gospel. You're literally drawing people in, making them comfortable, taking away everything that takes them out of this space. Mm-hmm. That's evangelism. Like your dad brings the word or your aunt brings the word, but like everything that happens before then sets that up. Mm-hmm. If everything sounds terrible, if the lights are too dark, too bright, whatever, and it's never perfect. There's no perfect. Yeah, you can't have more than 3 people in a room and it be what everybody wants. Like there's no way.
Sometimes one person in a room still can't do what everyone wants.
Yeah, but to strive to figure out what does your congregation, your community want, what's the majority rules there, and to do it well. That's huge, and that's what you're doing, like on a week in, week out basis.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I thank you, man. I'm the guy who benefits from it because you make me sound good. You make me look better. So
I don't have to do very much.
Yeah, I just kind of stand there. So you, like I say, you don't work here full time like I thought. Can we talk about the company, or is that okay?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can talk.
Okay, so I know what the word dev means, so I was proud of myself.
Awesome.
It means
what does
developer.
It does.
You are a software developer. Kind of give us the company, the background, if you want to, like where it came from. I'm intrigued. We're using it now here at Perry Hall Family Worship Center, so I endorse it. Like,
cool. Yeah. So we talked a little bit earlier about Rosedale Roofing. So all my years through school, I was thinking that's where I'm going after high school, and that's what I did. I went there right after that, and my dad was an estimator there. My brother was, and my other brother was in the sheet metal shop. But my thought was, hey, what? I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna be an estimator. Just like my dad, kind of thing. And it's something I really wanted to do. Like, it wasn't like something that I was like, oh man, I'm gonna do this. Like, I genuinely wanted to do that. In school, math was my favorite subject. So I'm into that kind of stuff. And so I got there, and I did a very little estimating in the beginning. And then I had some background from like school of doing, websites and web pages. And I made a small little application at school that could handle attendance and lunch orders for like all the homerooms and stuff. So that was a lot of fun. So, so I got to Rosedale, and then my brother was like, hey, we need, I can't remember what I did first. I think preventive maintenance maybe was first. So that's essentially an industry in the or division of the company that, I'm probably talking way too much about Rosedale, and I don't know enough about Team
No, that's
Gantt.
fine.
So should I start that one over?
There's no rules here, and we want to know where it came from, because that's intriguing. I didn't know you ever worked there. Okay. But it's also interesting to know that, like, it does seem like the whole family's happy working there. This isn't like a salt mine you go off to, like, because you have to. So I want to know you spent your time there. What pulled you away from that? You're developing this software.
Cool. But yeah, so I started with doing something with preventive maintenance and handling their scheduling. That grew into writing a time clock software, and then even sort of their sales and estimating things. And along that way, we were using Gantt charts to schedule what we were working on. And there was no like great way to have multiple people viewing the same thing to where it would be up to date. Like you could do it where you saved it as a PDF and we emailed it or printed it, whatever. But 90 seconds later, it's out of date. So Nathan, so he's my cousin. We're business partners now. He was working there as well, and we were doing some websites on the side for people. And then we just kind of said, hey, what if we try to make an online Gantt chart? And the original goal was kind of to solve the need at Rosedale. That's at least how I looked at it. Like, hey, this is something we need here. Yeah, we could spend a couple weekends and throw this together. And then, after maybe a month or two of it, we were like, we have something here that maybe we can sell that people will want to use. So we put some, little effort into Google AdWords. We got some signups, and we realized like, hey, this was, something that's real. And we just kind of kept following that lead. And I think we were, about a year into just like a beta phase where we were building. And then it was in November 2010 we launched sort of officially. We were a paid service, and I think it was maybe about 3 or 4 months later, I went down to part-time at Rosedale, part-time at Team Gantt, and, just kind of played that seesaw a little bit until the company grew enough. And then we did the same thing with Nathan a few months later. And, so now here we are. It's 10 years since we actually started. So August 8th was the earliest record we have of like email conversation about this. It wasn't even called Team Gantt back then. But yeah, so here we are, about 10 years later, we're up to 21 employees. That counts Nathan and myself. Yeah. Employees all across the U.S., customers all across the world. It's web-based, so anyone can use it anywhere.
You are born, and I think this has a place in ministry of all kinds, but you're a born problem solver, and that's something I'm learning and I love about you. Most people, when there's an issue, like they're working at Rosedale Roofing and we don't have the right software to track, they're just like, too bad. Yeah. Like, and they just move on. You're like, no, I'm going to create an entire company based around this. Yeah. Do you think outside of church, because you're here, you're doing production, you're doing concerts and promotions and all that stuff, we can pretty easily label ministry, but would you say just your life outside of like building this company, how does your faith affect it? Is there ministry within the company for you as just a Christian? Like, yeah, definitely. What's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, there's, just the personal ministry of just trying to be, an upstanding, person and really, show Christ to everyone that we interact with, whether it's employees, whether it's customers. Yeah. Team Gantt is a very giving company to ministries. I don't really want to go into that. That's not fine. Something we talk about.
But generosity is important
or brag about, but it is something we do. Yeah. So we want to, anything we do show Christ in some sort of way.
Now, is everyone in the company for the most part believers or like?
No. It's split around. Okay. Yeah. Some are, some aren't, and
which I think is great. So this is something that I've thought about from a musician standpoint, and I'm curious as to whether you've thought about it from what you do. Okay. There's a big conversation, argument, whatever you want to call it, around like if you have a skill or if you have a talent, you should do it for Christ, right? So for us, it's kind of an easy label. People are like, you're a musician, you should be a Christian musician. Man, But then a software developer, you're making a great product that helps people organize themselves. Yeah. Does it have to be Christian? Like, you know what I mean? Like, have you ever felt that pressure? I'm curious if it's more of just like a musician, like, kind of issue.
Yeah, I think you see it more in music. Like, I don't think there's pressure for us to be a Christian organization. We're a company ran by Christians. Yeah. But I don't think, we sort of have this pressure to be that way. I think the music industry is very different.
It is.
I also don't understand that pressure in a lot of ways.
I don't either, and I don't really put up with it or ascribe to it. Yeah. Like, we're on a Christian label. The 5 of us are Christians. The majority of what we write is something to do with our faith, or at least colored by it, because that's who we are.
Absolutely.
But I've also written straight up love songs for my wife that people treat as worship songs, and I'm fine with that. Right. Do you know what I mean? Like, you use that for whatever purpose, but if you ask me, I'm not going to lie. Like, no, I really like my wife, by the way. Like, I feel like it's okay for me to do that, but there are people out there who they would disagree, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you've heard the saying, like, there's no such thing as a Christian truck driver or there's a Christian boxer. Like, I mean, there's Christians in everything we do, which again, I think gets back to the heart of what we're trying to communicate, or the conversation we're trying to have here is just love Jesus in everything you do and like live for him. It doesn't necessarily have to be a ministry.
Right.
You know? What's the future? Is Team Gantt forever?
Team Gantt? Yes, the plan is forever. No intent to sell. You know, we never got investment money from, VCs or anything. We were bootstrapped, so it basically means we started with our own money. And so there's no intent to sell. We love what we do.
Yeah.
We love who we get to do it with, and we love who we get to do it for. So
it seems like a very close-knit group of guys.
Absolutely.
Like some
and girls.
Actually related, and just it seems like you treat each other like family.
Mm-hmm.
I think the misnomer is like when you start a company or you build a business, like you got easy street, but the truth is, right, you're working harder than you would be for
absolutely.
anyone else's company.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. But 10 years in, is it starting to level out? Like you starting to find a more even schedule in your life, or is it even crazier?
Yeah, so we, very early on, we really strived. A lot of people talk about it, whatever. They don't practice it, but we really strive to have a good sort of work and life balance.
Yeah.
When we got started, we were doing about 4 hours a week over at Nathan's in his basement. At that exact same time, we were building this building.
Wow.
So basically what happened
and
was...
working at Rosedale Roofing.
Yeah. So I would work at Rosedale, full time during the week.
Mm-hmm.
And then Saturday morning, I was going over Nathan's, and we were working on Team Gantt. And then sometimes we would get lunch together, sometimes we wouldn't. But then I would come here and we would be doing stuff here. So whatever it was. So we started with a very, very short timeline per week that we had, basically. So we learned from the beginning we had to be, we had to have good discernment in what we were doing.
Yeah.
And we had to be hyper efficient at it. So that was something that, as we grew it into like a full-time job, full-time, position for us, we realized, hey, we can be, successful with 4 hours of work. We can do that with 40 and then have our lives outside of that. And then now we're a 36-hour work week. So
that's awesome.
So Fridays are a short day.
I love that principle, man. Listen, thanks a lot. We're gonna do another episode, but I appreciate you being here. If I would like to put the information for Team Gantt in the description so people can see it. Check it out. We use it. It's worth it. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, leave us a comment. Tell John how beautiful he is and whether you would call him John or Johnny. Your call. So thanks a lot.
Thanks.